Dragon's Lair.
We're talking with Walter Day. If there's anyone who's more about video games, I'm not sure who that person might be. Walter, thanks for your time.
I'm honored. I'm honored to be on the show, just as I'm honored to be at the show, because this show is a pretty big show.
It is.
The show is a very significant show. I love the incredible eclectic diversity of all the different kinds of themes that are here, from cosplay to comics to whatever, to video games, especially video games. They're making a foray into video games year after year after year, and this is the culmination of their interest so far, with Old School Gamer magazine coming here from Iowa, from Des Moines, and setting up a booth and sponsoring a classic gaming Olympics or World Championship. So I'm very pleased to be here. And I'd just like to say that there's something special about retro gaming.
Absolutely.
If you take your average kid who's playing the games that they're playing right now, in 5 years, that new younger generation that comes up will be playing a different set of games. And when the kids who were playing the games of 5 years ago still love those games, because people commonly continue to stick with the games they grew up with. And so the new generation will say, oh, you guys are retro gamers. The point I'm getting at is every single thing that you see in here, in this whole place, that is the new modern games, and not too many years from now, they will be retro games.
That's weird to think about.
Oh, yeah, because, and it's funny, and the new generation will sneer at the people of today. In 5 years, those people will sneer at the people today and think that they're old-fashioned retro gamers. Because time marches on, culture just, grips across time and space, and essentially, history is incorporating more and more and more gaming modalities, making it part of their incredible legacy and heritage. And that's what Old School Gamer magazine is all about. That has sponsored me to come here. They like to embrace the incredible wide spectrum of history and bundle it all together under the expression Old School Gamer. So it's a very, very neat thing to watch as more and more games, just like every year, a car that's 25 years old is then considered a classic. So where does that put us? 96 is 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So a 1994 card, which seems like yesterday, technically is considered a classic. And the same with the games. More and more of those games are creeping into the classic realm, and people aren't noticing. All they know is they love what they grew up with, and they usually stay devoted to those games, even more than going to the newer titles. And those newer title people think, oh, you're a classic gamer, a retro gamer. And that's just the way it's going. So 3 cheers for retro gaming, because retro gaming is a bigger deal than people realize, and it's part of all our lives.
It's interesting to think about, too, like you mentioned, stuff like 94, 95, 96. That, to me, doesn't, I think like that decade between 2000 and 2010 didn't happen, because someone will say, 1996, oh, that was just 10. No, that was 25 years ago. But you, as someone who has seen the changes throughout gaming, what's the biggest underlying trend that games have changed, consoles have changed, but something has stayed the same? What would you say that might be?
Okay, so there's some important answers to that. First of all, right now, modern esports people who promote modern esports, they think that they're inventing esports. And also, as more and more opportunities for people to become spectators pop up, and there's a incredible growing spectator support base for the whole esports phenomena, they also think, oh, we invented spectator sport. Two of the things, to me, that are the commonality that has lasted through all the amazing technological changes: the interest in becoming a professional esports person, that's so predominant nowadays, to the degree that colleges are embracing that and making it part of their curriculum.
Yes.
That's how big of it is, that it's even entered, like in my hometown, they have an esports team on the high school, and all the other high schools are developing esports teams. Major league sports teams are developing an esports affiliate that might travel with their team when they go from city to city to play other franchises, and like NBA, NHL, stuff like that. So, in other words, the incredible interest in esports is not new. It's the technology that allowed it to flourish to this amazing level. But all the champions who were part of my organization almost 40 years ago, Twin Galaxies is 40 years old in a few months. 40 years ago, they always believed that someday they would be professional video game players, and that it was going to support them, and that it was going to be their future that they desired. So in other words, this incredible devotion to esports stuff that's going on today, that same spirit existed from the very beginning. It's just that the technology wasn't there available to support that opportunity. So many of those players said, you know, I was just born 30 years ahead of my time. But I believed in it, I wanted it, and that's my expectation, that I was going to become a professional video game player. So have you ever seen that photograph of all those players posing in the street that was in Life magazine?
Yeah.
The famous photograph? Yeah. All those guys firmly were devoted to the idea of becoming esports superstars, and that's what they were going to do for the rest of their life. But they were 35 years ahead of time, and that's what it was. So that's one of the main things that remained the same, in that the spirit for esports was always there from the beginning, and the modern group of esports people didn't invent that. Right. That's not new. It's the technology that's new that allows foundations and platforms to exist that allows esports to flourish on the level it's flourishing. The second thing that's so amazing is the spectator sport. Back in 1981, if Billy Mitchell, the famous Pac-Man player and Donkey Kong player, if the technology had been available and all the arcades could have plugged in to a broadcast coming from Twin Galaxies, where one of the champions, especially Billy Mitchell or those other guys, for Donkey Kong or Pac-Man or Galaga, 50,000 arcades would have subscribed and would have been on that feed that night.
Right, yeah.
Well, Billy Mitchell goes for the Donkey Kong world record. Because when you were the top player in your arcade, 50,000, 75,000 different arcades, and you were putting up a real high score in a game, before you knew it, there were a couple people watching. And then before you knew it even further, there's 20 people watching. Because the seed was already there, the impulse was already there, the tendency was already there, that the public, the people, the other people in the arcade loved to watch championship level play when given the opportunity. So a crowd would always gather around those superstars way back then. In other words, the amazing spectator sport that's being generated now was always there in spiritual form.
Yeah.
It just never had an outlet. It never had a venue. It never had an infrastructure, a nervous system with which to flow and expand and have the opportunity to watch the champions do their scores. So those two are the main things. Two spiritual things. People believed in esports and spectators wanted to watch esports. From the very beginning that the first quarter was dropped in the first video game, people wanted to watch great play. And what happened during that time? The technology expanded so much that anybody anywhere in the world could play anybody else anywhere in the world. And that the technology would allow it to be a high resolution, real-time, space-time, and also determine and verify that they are indeed playing correctly, and that, you know, all those kind of factors would be. But what made it more interesting was that the technology allowed potential sponsors to get involved and support it and advertise their products. And because the technology could actually determine how many eyeballs saw their ads and how many people clicked through and actually purchased. Once that incredible technology was available for the process of merchandising, these people knew that this was the place to advertise as opposed to a hard print magazine. Because who knows who responds to a print magazine, really? But when you have the ability to determine in real time how many people are seeing your stuff and how many people are clicking through and ordering, that made it a no-brainer for them to put all their money behind esports and get very involved. And it sort of lowered the bar, too, because it meant that there's always sponsors. So therefore, you can start just a grassroots organization and still have lots of sponsors because there's so many people willing to get on board and support their products and put money up to support your different venue or your contest or your league or whatever it is. So with that incredible technology, things could be verified on a new level. Things could be publicized on a new level, and everybody could face everybody else, and that made a whole new ball game, but still utilizing the same old spiritual things that people want to be esports stars and people want to watch esports stars. Does that make sense as an answer?
It does, yeah, that's brilliant. And you started out as a businessman. If I'm not mistaken, it was some oil, some real estate, things like that, if I remember. But you obviously have that businessman acumen. Did you know when you got Twin Galaxies and everything like that, this is the future, arcade, gaming, this is the future?
I have to tell you the secret behind the backstory.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, you hear me talk about meditation. I talk about it a lot now, even more. I was practicing transcendental meditation 2 times a day. You do it 20 minutes in the morning, you do it 20 minutes in the evening, and it's famous for making your head clearer and your brain sharper and more creative. I just had all these incredible creativity ideas about how to do all that stuff from just sitting down and meditating 2 times a day.
Meditate. See, people, that's the living proof.
Transcendental meditation. I have to be frank that that's where all this stuff came from. But as soon as I saw the first people do the first high scores with the crowds around them, I immediately cognized this whole thing and saw this is what it's all about, and this is the future of it. And I just took step after step after step and started recording scores, created the Twin Galaxies scoreboard, founded, the Twin Galaxies arcade, and then took it on the road and made it the definitive esports organization in history. That's why a lot of people consider me the father of esports, because that was the first organized. That was the first esports organization for competitive esports. There were 3 or 4 contests before I started Twin Galaxies, but they were just one-ups. Twin Galaxies was actually a comprehensive program that crowned the champions, created the rules, enforced the rules, honored the champions, created contests, all that stuff. No one had done it before. So that's why many people consider Twin Galaxies the birthplace of organized, competitive esports.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
With all the games out there, you ran this on the ground floor. When you look back, if you personally had to say your top 5 favorite arcade, console games, whatever, do you know what they're off the top of your head? Would it require some deep thought?
Well, I know which ones were the greatest ones. See, when I entered the field and became the official scorekeeper, the official scorekeeper, I found myself, it's almost like you're merging, you know how you go up an on-ramp and you suddenly merge into traffic?
Yeah.
I suddenly found myself, upon becoming the scorekeeper, and suddenly overnight everybody was looking to Twin Galaxies. They're looking to Twin Galaxies to be their scorekeeper. It happened overnight, literally.
Huh.
And it was like driving a car and merging into heavy traffic, because suddenly I found out there's a huge worldwide competition for who's the best on Pac-Man. A huge worldwide competition for who's the best on Donkey Kong. A huge worldwide competition for who's the best on Defender and Missile Command and Asteroids. And every day, somewhere we would be in the news as we adjudicated and said, this is the new world record on Defender. There were times when the record on Defender changed like 3 times in a single day.
Wow.
Because there could be 100 different arcades all having their local champion go for the world record. And the world record would creep up and creep up and creep up and creep up. And the same with Pac-Man. We had the deal with Pac-Man, we had the deal with Defender, we had the deal with Galaga, we had the deal with Centipede. There were all these, Missile Command. There were all these attempts because people loved to see champions get high scores. And the arcades and the media was so intrigued by it all that when someone at a local arcade got a high score, which broke a new world record, they would do feature stories on it.
Right.
Big, tremendous amount of print would be devoted to this new champion who just got this high score on the game. And so there's a period there where I could see that Twin Galaxies was in the news every single day, someplace. And that's because we would be integral to the story, because we're officially proclaiming that, yes, this is indeed the top score, or this is the 3rd highest score. And so we were part of the structure of all these stories again and again and again and again and again, which made Twin Galaxies the crossroads of the video game age.
Sure, yeah.
Because people began to come there to play in front of me in person.
Right.
It was very interesting. So
It's
it
like-
became a mecca for video game playing.
It's like coming to The Godfather to, beg a favor. You're playing in front of Walter Day.
Some of the media used to refer to us as the Dodge City of video games because the fast guns would come to show off their skills.
Right, yeah, it makes
So
sense.
it's pretty amazing.
So when you look at how, obviously, we've gone from, the stand-up consoles like this with Dragon's Lair, Miss Pac-Man, stuff like that, now with the modern, like, Xbox One where you're downloading the games, what, in your opinion, when you look at the landscape of gaming, if you had to point to something that has changed gaming, in your opinion, not for the best, what is there something you can point to that isn't?
Oh, well, if we want to get to the downside of everything, it's very eroding for people's health to be into video games too much. Consumption of too much sugar, consumption of too much caffeine, maybe even drugs, even though that doesn't help you think clearly as a gamer. And also staying up all night sleeping during the day.
Yeah.
That erodes the health in a tremendous way. So when parents are involved, parents aren't doing a good job right now, in most cases. So parents have got to really rein their kids in because it's detrimental to their health and their psychological well-being. So that's the downside to things. And then of course they say, are the violent video games going to have an effect? Well, everything has an effect somewhere. So violent video games probably aren't going to be helpful, especially if the person is hair-trigger balanced, and they already have a lot of psychological or emotional issues that they're bringing to the table. But the most maybe amazing thing is that Ready Player One. Who knows how many more years before there is a big global oasis. The technology is getting closer and closer and closer. The computer strength and bandwidth is getting closer, closer, closer. So that it's very, very possible that in 20 years, 15 years, 30 years, who knows when it'll happen, there'll be a tremendous common place that people can go to and then have tremendous bandwidth so they have real-time participation. So that's very possible. Very possible. And all sorts of accessories, all sorts of VR, things like that. And things you run on so you can have the simulated experience of running and moving through an environment. So all that stuff clearly we're being directed to. And it's like the space age. NASA did a terrible, they did a less than adequate job of moving us to the stars because they become budget restricted. It's almost like they lost the spirit.
Yeah.
But once it suddenly segued over to the realm of industry and billionaires, things really started taking off.
Right, yeah.
Because in the old days, NASA and maybe 4 or 5 other space agencies, they were pioneering the development of space technology. Now you have hundreds, maybe even thousands of companies all working on different areas of space-age technology for space travel. And they're all sharing information on the internet. It's just like any growth of knowledge. In the old days, maybe in the 1870s, let's say there were 1,000 laboratories in the world that were doing original scientific research. Now there's probably 2 or 3 million laboratories in the world that are moving the body of knowledge forward, and they're sharing it in journals immediately and online immediately, so that the knowledge base is expanding faster, as is space technology expanding faster. So in that same way, the technology of gaming is expanding faster because everybody's building on each other's shoulders. So it's going to be pretty fast and pretty amazing. I hope this answer works for you.
That does. That was exactly right, because there's no wrong answer because I'm getting it from you, so I'm perfectly happy with any answer you give. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for your time, Walter Day. He's here at Planet Comicon.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
I'm glad you like my answers.
Of course. I love them. Thank you.
Thank you.